Okay, so this morning on Newswave, we had covered a report from the Economic Daily News, which was a paper out of Taipei that mentioned that suppliers were getting together and filling orders and starting planning for a new switch system that would be coming to market first half of next year. They said that in the final quarter of this fiscal year, it would go into production, and then it would be brought to market in the first quarter of next fiscal year. This means that between January and June, all of that would take place next year, and we would have some sort of new switch system. Now, the way I read this is it sounds like it would be a Switch revision similar to that Switch V2. Remember that came out and basically replaced the original Switch. A lot had to do with trying to get rid of the hackable Switch systems overall. And hey, we got better battery life and a more efficient chip out of it. So it actually worked out pretty well. The games don't really run any better though. So there's that, right? But it also allowed them to do something like the Switch Lite, which was a full-on revision that was introduced and shown off. However, we of course had rumors next to that was saying there would also be a quote-unquote Switch Pro. Wasn't really sold on that, but I had heard a lot about this mini coming out leading up to it, and that's why I was more on board with that, because one, it made sense, and two, there was a lot going on around that at the time. That ended up being correct. So there we go. Now, going into apparently next year, Bloomberg is also throwing their hat in the rumor ring now around this Switch revision. So we're going to go over that because there was one piece of information that everyone was really pointing to and a little confused about. And I didn't really feel like going back into this in Newswave tomorrow because there's not much else outside of just that. All right. So guys, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you like it down below. Helps out a lot. Let's go over here to Bloomberg. It says Nintendo plans to debut an upgraded model of its Switch console next year, along with a lineup of new games. People familiar with the matter said, seeding 2020's holiday spotlight to rival devices from Sony and Microsoft. Two systems we still don't know anything about pricing or release date for. Awesome, right? But it's pretty clear that those are supposed to be new generations. I don't think this Switch system is going to be a new generation. I think it's just going to be another part of the Switch family, if it exists at all. This is, again, the fourth year we've been talking about this. I feel like we were talking about Switch Pro like before the Switch came out. I feel like maybe I'm wrong there. Let me know. But it says the specifications of the new machine have yet to be finalized, though the Kyoto-based company has looked into including more computing power and 4K high-definition graphics. People briefed on the strategy told Bloomberg News, asking not to be identified because it's private. Okay, so this is from Takashi Machizuki. We've been following him for a while now, dating back to before the Switch came out. He's been covering a lot of these rumors and stuff, and sometimes he's kind of out there with some of this reporting, okay? Other times, he's dead on. So it's like, it's hard to say exactly where he is at times with some of his sourcing. I almost think that at times he talks to someone or people who are more familiar with Nintendo's R&D that are more future thinking with this stuff, because before the Switch came out, he had talked about it having like 1440p output and all this crazy stuff, and none of that ended up being correct. But when I hear 4K high definition graphics, that seems very future thinking, like something they may try to tackle next generation. The X1 can do 4K, but it's 4K video mostly. So like it can encode 4K. It can do all of that, right? Through like, if you want to watch Netflix in 4K, technically the X1 can do that. There's one problem with that. The Switch still doesn't have Netflix, strangely, which is very weird. It has YouTube, so I guess you could do 4K on that if you really wanted to. I guess they could also introduce methods of upscaling for 4K sets just to be a little more friendly with it, because you'd still be taking a pretty junk image at times for its image quality and just moving it up. I don't know if they would be able to incorporate anything with DLSS, as that kind of leverages tensor cores inside of the new GPUs and deep learning. Unfortunately, the X1 as it stands now would not be capable of that at all to the degree that the newer GPUs are. So unless they have some new method of upscaling, I don't know how they would just turn around and make a 4K Switch out of nowhere when half the time we're hoping for stable frame rates and 1080p right now. Now, they do talk a little bit about Nintendo's plans for game releases next year, and I don't think this is going to surprise too many people based on how quiet it's been so far this year. I mean, Animal Crossing was big, right? Paper Mario was pretty good. It sold better than the other Paper Marios, which is good to hear that. But a lot of people have really been looking towards this holiday, and outside of the Pokemon DLC that's supposed to be coming up later this year, and Pikmin 3 Deluxe, they haven't really announced anything else for this year. As of now, there's a chance that this rumored direct coming up on Friday could shed some light on the holiday, but it shouldn't shock anyone to hear that Nintendo is probably going to make a big push next year, because after March, we would be into the Switch's 5th year at that point, and that's when you would expect a lot of studios at Nintendo to have caught back up and maybe have another Mario game ready, right, for like a 3-year cycle of dev after Odyssey dropped. They say the release of the upgraded Switch would be coupled with or followed by a slew of games from Nintendo itself and related outside studios, the people said. Those games would address a wide range of players, from casual game seekers, gamers seeking small dose of escapism, to more devoted fans putting in marathon gaming sessions. That would be good to hear, like Breath of the Wild 2, for example, next holiday, right? That'd be great. Another 3D Mario game, like a Mario Odyssey 2 or something. What if they did Galaxy 3? That'd be wild, wouldn't it? Something like that. Or just a brand new 3D Mario style game. Something like that, along with Zelda, and then maybe some updates on something like Metroid Prime 4, which is probably still coming out the last year of the Switch. But they make a good point that if they do this revision, kind of having it like around some new game reveals or releases would, of course, just work to drive more Switch sales, and in turn could, let's say that it is a slightly more upgraded Switch, just it's able to do better image quality, for example. Maybe Breath of the Wild 2 is something that would leverage that. Maybe older games would get patches, or just because it's dynamic resolution would just run at like the max resolution that it can when it's playing on this new Switch. Those are things that would help to keep some of their older games evergreen, right? Because someone might get this new Switch and then go, oh, well, I guess I'll get Breath of the Wild 1 and 2, right? So that would increase the sales overall. It would make sense to do a Switch revision next year. I think most people understand that it would just make sense to do it. But like I said, Nintendo's not going to announce it anyway until the start of next year if they are doing it. They're not going to kill their holiday and announce it like this week. Some people have mentioned that. They said, oh, there's this rumored direct. They're not announcing a new Switch at this rumored direct. That would not be happening. Also, wouldn't you expect more leaks coming out if it was actually in production than a paper in Taipei who hears from supply chains that orders are starting to happen? If orders are happening now, this system isn't coming out for a little while. Like they say, it could be up to 7 months from now that it comes out. And yeah, I would believe that. So Nintendo likes to announce a system like a month or two before it comes out. So it's going to be a bit. It's going to be, like I said, like 6 months of rumors before we find out if this is actually a thing. But let me know what you guys think about a 4K Switch, as Bloomberg is reporting here. I'm not on board with 4K. Let's figure out 1080p and stable frame rate for some of these games first, as like we've said, some of these games are like 540p and below. You know what? If a Switch came out with a moderate bump in power so that image quality could be cleaned up to 720p handheld, 1080p docked, and the frame rate was good, I mean, that to me would be worth picking up for that upgrade in image quality and overall stability around the frame rate. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below, with Bloomberg now jumping in here with the rumors around a Switch revision for the first half of next year, it seems. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.